Friends, welcome to what is hopefully the last Do Not Open Until Book Club book review. It has been a long journey, but we've all made it to the end. I guess I should say sorry to the millions of other viewers who have joined us along the way, but it's time to officially retire this series. I know, it's sad to see such a beloved, award-winning series coming so abruptly to a close, but really isn't that how everything in life is? Abrupt, depressing, and unforeseen. At least that's how life is for Alex, the main protagonist of this book. Man, Alex's character is one that I both feel sorry for and cringe reading about at the same time. Sure, she's had a rough go of things, but so have so many other people in the world, and not everyone is running around coast towns, worming their way into parties and trying to survive. Alex's survival instincts, though, are something to be praised for sure, at least when they're working at their full capacity. I felt like she would go from making 200 IQ moves one minute to three-headed moves the next. For instance, she knows exactly how to spot a group who is likely going to be going to a house party that evening, but hasn't experienced a phone and rice situation before. Like I said, I feel bad for Alex. She's lived her whole life hopping from one bad situation to the next, working as a waitress, trying to survive as a sex worker in the city, to being evicted by her friends and running from a drug dealer. It's a tough spot to be in, and so I empathize with her ability to push through no matter what. Add in, on top of that she's clearly dealing with an addiction, and it's surprising she's made it as far as she has by the opening of the book. All that being said, though, her journey through this book feels like a very aimless and misguided adventure. From the very moment Simon kicks her out of the house and sends her back to the city, it was over for her. She would have done so much better for herself if she skipped town altogether at that point. There was nothing for her on the coast and nothing for her in the city. Why not just use your street smarts to go somewhere where you could get a fresh start? Leave Dom and everything else behind and pretend it never happened. You would think she would have had that thought with her obvious amounts of street smarts, but no. That's one of those points where those smarts failed her. She was so intoxicated by the glimpse of a life that Simon had shown her that she was willing to do any and everything to get back to it, even if it almost killed her. But yeah, as a reader and as what I would like to think a normally adjusted human, I saw the boulder on this train wreck a week away. One of the only things holding this book together for me was just waiting to see that impact. So imagine my surprise when the majority of the book turns out to be a seemingly endless chain of side quests. Imagine, if you will, that this is an anime. As the leading expert on anime, let me paint for you a scene. Monkey D. Luffy sees his arch nemesis, Seto Kaiba, across the battlefield. The two engage in a brief but brutal battle over the 8 Dragon Balls. It's a furious battle of Kamehamehas and Jutsus, and as the fists fly, Kaiba says to Luffy, "Once I take these Dragon Balls from you, I'll finally be able to summon Exodia and secure victory for the Fire Nation. Once these Dragon Balls hatch in a week." And then when the dust from Luffy's powerful Hinokami Kagura settles, Kaiba and the Dragon Balls are nowhere to be seen. Luffy knows that in a week, the Fire Nation will see victory with Kaiba leading the charge. What will Luffy do next week? Tune in next time on Dragon Piece: The Last Shippuden. And then the next episode starts, and Luffy is literally helping a grandma cross the street. And then in the next episode, he's filing his taxes. As the leading anime expert, this is similar to my perception of the plot structure of The Guest. This isn't to say the entire book was awful. There were some very interesting vignettes sprinkled in there, like the party scene when Alex finally meets up with Jack, or when she accidentally hooks up with some random girl's boyfriend at another party. Honestly, the whole side arc with Jack at his ex-girlfriend's house was very interesting. It seemed like there was a point there that I could see Alex and Jack being happy. Alex giving up her crazy idea that Simon would want her back and learning to be more content in the moment. One thing that shook that reality for me, though, was when Alex decided to cut the frozen pizza into squares. That's a level of pizza transgression that even Sarah hasn't crossed. That reality, though, was completely shattered when Max came in dropping the mega bomb that Jack was only 17. I mean, at that point, Alex was already starting to be over him, sinking further into her illusion that Simon would actually want her back, but damn, did that revelation feel like a gut slap. One thing that never got clarity, though, in Alex and Jack's situationship was whatever happened between Jack and his ex-girlfriend. There were hints thrown in here and there. Jack's on medication for it. He loses his cool. He very much needs to see a therapist, but it's never specifically stated as to what happened. I believe Jack says something along the lines of, "I didn't mean to bring it to school," which leads me to believe he threatened her with a weapon of some kind. But if that's the case, then why were the ex-girlfriend's parents still cool with Jack? The only logical conclusion there is that he was lying about that as well, just like he lied about being able to get money for Dom. But this book definitely doesn't like to spill out details, preferring to give you a seemingly Rorschach-esque test to see where you'll go with information provided to you. Look no further than the ending of the book for a great example of that. As your leading anime expert, let me bring back Luffy's adventure to compare one more time. It's nearing the end of the season, the penultimate episode. Luffy just successfully won his small claims court case against Boros when he remembers that tomorrow will be the day Kaiba uses the Dragon Balls to summon Exodia. It's time for the final showdown. You know that with only one episode left in the entire season, time is running out for Luffy to emerge victorious. The rest of the penultimate episode's runtime is spent finding the Fire Nation's main base, and in the process, Luffy stumbles through a forest of animal gods being threatened by Lady Eboshi of Irontown. It's not his problem though, so he just runs through the forest unbothered until he takes an arrow to the knee. Determined to reach his final destination, however, he pushes the pain to the back of his mind and keeps heading towards the Fire Nation. The final episode begins. It's only 30 minutes long. How are they going to wrap this epic arc up in only 30 minutes, you say to yourself, as you ready for what you expect to be the most action-packed 30 minutes of anime you've ever seen. Luffy walks into the gate to the Fire Nation, and instead of being immediately met by fierce battle, he just strolls around camp. 15 minutes have passed and the battle hasn't even started. You're starting to feel like something's off. Another 10 minutes go by as Luffy has a glass of wine and starts searching through the cabinetry. You pull up the timeline to verify that there are indeed only 5 minutes left in this entire arc. What's happening, you say to yourself, as there's no battle to be seen. You watch the timeline inch ever closer to the end of the episode. 2 minutes, 1 minute. And that's when it happens. Luffy sees who he thinks is Kaiba from behind. A few short but precious seconds later, Kaiba turns around too. 30 seconds is all that's left to bring this thing, whatever it is, to a close. Luffy then notices Kaiba isn't looking at him, but instead through him. Cut to black. Now imagine you're me, and instead of the final episode of Dragon Piece The Last Shippuden, this is the guest. All jokes aside, the finale is definitely not what I expected, and a lot of questions were left unanswered. Of course Simon isn't going to take her back, we all know that. But why was everything slightly off? Why did Simon look through her instead of at her? Was Dom behind her with her gun? Was her eyeball hanging out of its socket? The internet has many a theory on the conclusion of this book, ranging from answers like Alex died in the waves in the first chapter, to Alex died in the car crash, to I died from cringe reading this book. However, the version of events that I think is the most plausible is that Alex sustained a really bad head injury from the crash, and the combination of drugs and head trauma is making her think that she's at Simon's party, when in actuality she stumbled into another random Labor Day party with a visible head injury, and the end reaction is the first person's reaction she's noticed to her wounds. This explanation serves me well for the consequences immediately following the final words of the book, but does little for my satisfaction of the ending as a whole. What happens to Alex now? Surely someone calls the cops or an ambulance. Do they connect her back to Jack's car accident, making Alex come face to face with the guy she just desperately tried to leave behind? Do all of her other crimes come back to get her, like effectively kidnapping a child for the day or stealing painkillers, muscle relaxers, and cash from everyone in a 5-mile radius? These are the things that I wish I had answers to, and honestly what drove me to look up other people's opinions on the ending online. I seriously considered the fact that whoever had recorded the audiobook for this had the last chapter of their book torn out, or an intern deleted the last section of the recording and pushed it live anyway. Even with these looming questions, I still found the book to be enjoyable. The tension of what would happen at the end was enough to keep me going, even if it did not pay off the way I wanted it to in the end. The main character felt nuanced. She knew the things she was doing weren't good, but in her mind she had to keep doing them to make it to the next day. After debating it in my head, I'm going to go ahead and give this book a recommend. The tension of the final confrontation, along with the interesting vignettes interspersed throughout the book, make it an interesting read, even if it wasn't that satisfying to finish. And with that, the last Don't Open Until Book Club video is complete. I miss you all so freaking much, and I can't wait to be there for the next book. I hope Heart Shaped Box is good, because I'm about to have a lot of time to kill on a plane, and I'm hoping that'll see me through the entire journey. Also, I don't know what I'm going to do for Halloween, so shoot me some costume suggestions. Also, Starfield is very good.